Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We've got some big news to go over regarding the pre-order bonuses for NHL 23, as well as how team builders will work in Hockey Ultimate Team. So in this video, we're going to break down all of the cards that came out, as well as touch on a little bit more about the pre-order bonuses that you're going to receive this year. All right, let's get into the video. So they announced the Eastern Conference team builder cards. These are going to be the ones that you cash in all of the cards for a specific team, and you'll acquire that team's 84 overall card. You then trade in a number of 84 overalls, and you will receive a higher overall team builder card, exactly like it worked in NHL 22. It's extremely important to remember, if you're watching this video the day it was released, you've only got until September 16th at midnight, so essentially September 15th to pre-order, or you're not going to receive the pack that gives you 2 of these cards. So make sure that if you're going to play Hockey Ultimate Team more than 100 hours, and you know if you are going to or not, I would totally recommend pre-ordering it for this bonus, as it does add quite a bit of value. That being said, I've got to say there are some questionable decisions when it comes to some of these teams' team builder choices. When I think team builder for the Detroit Red Wings, I don't think Kyle Quincy.
What the f is this?
Now, obviously, these are the opening team builder cards, and when they go up into their higher versions, I hope to see some more impactful players be chosen for the team builder cards, because as we got later on in the year, I mean, Colton Parayko and Stu Grimson, they were cool cards later on, but it just wasn't exciting. I want to see some really exciting player choices that make a lot more sense. So to touch on the choices for the Eastern Conference, starting in the Atlantic, we've got the aforementioned Kyle Quincy for the Detroit Red Wings, Thomas Plekanec for Montreal, Dave Keon of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Radoslav Olish for Florida, Anton Strawman for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Chuck Kobasu for the Boston Bruins, and I'm not gonna lie, when I think Chuck Kobasu, I think Calgary Flames, but hey, that's me. Then we've got Mien for the Buffalo Sabres and Wade Redden for the Ottawa Senators. Moving over to the Metro Division, we've got Scott Hartnell for the Philadelphia Flyers, Ruud Salainen for the New York Rangers, Ken Danico for the New Jersey Devils, Yuri Slieger for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Chris Clark for the Washington Capitals, RJ Umberger for the Blue Jackets, Mike Sillinger for the New York Islanders, and Sean Hill for the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm not gonna lie, I had to go into Hockey DB to find the Washington Capitals' Chris Clark, because I can't even remember him being a player for the Capitals, let alone a team builder. That being said, we do now know that the overalls appear to start lower in this year's game. Something that has always been a hot topic for conversation is the power creep and progression in Hockey Ultimate Team. I think more than any other sports game, you see the power creep and overalls increase really impact the game negatively compared to all other sports games. NHL gets hit the hardest because once speed goes up to 99, the game is completely different than it feels at launch. So if you don't go to a build system like myself and Kesso had kind of gone over in the prior months, the only other way to slow power creep and progression would be to start the overalls at a lower rate. So it does appear that at least from what we've seen so far from the team builders, they started at 85 last year. They're starting at 84 this year. You can only assume that they won't be 90s when you cash them all in. They're going to be 89 overalls. Now let's talk about, are they worth it? So if you go back to NHL 22 at the launch of the game, you've got to collect a certain amount of 80 and above cards for each team and 74 to 80, or really any card, you can choose any of them, to acquire one of these 84 overalls. They were 85 and 22. But how much were they worth? Now, launch of the game, that is when base cards are at their highest cost, because not only do you cash them in for essentially every single set that is available in the game, but they are also the most usable they'll ever be. That is why I recommend for people that are going to spend money on the game, even though I would strongly push against spending money in NHL. If you are going to spend money on the game, it should be early on, because when you pack an 84 overall Chris Letang, he is going to actually have a lot of value, more value than he'll ever have. As opposed to later on in the year when you're basically hoping for whatever the new hot MSP is, base cards that you pack are actually going to return some value. So when it comes to team builders, the value on them, it's at least 1,000 coins per card required to make an 84. And at launch of the game, it's usually around 1,500 to 2,000 because everyone's fighting to make the new 90 or whatever the higher overall team builder card is. So by using that math, you're looking at roughly about 100,000 coin savings if you are to do this pre-order bonus and choose 2 of these cards. We haven't seen the Western Conference, but I'll be sure to cover that once it comes out. But what about the guys that aren't chasing after the higher overall team builders and you're just looking to get some 84 overall cards that can be used on your team? Let's take a look at some of these guys and what they would have been rated in NHL 22. So if we take a look at NHL 22 versions of these cards, we have to assume that their attributes will be somewhat similar. So RJ Umberger, the Columbus Blue Jackets team builder in NHL 23, he did actually have an 84 overall card in 22. As you can see, if you get some skating synergies, if those are still in the game for 23, it's actually a pretty usable card at launch. Anyone with around 90 overall speed was essentially the high end at launch of the game, and with the lower overalls for these team builders, it has me thinking that they're probably going to try to rein in speed a little bit more than they already do to try and make it so that, you know, the progression just takes a little bit longer. So RJ Umberger would actually be a half decent card early on in the game. Now heading over to look at the Tampa Bay Lightning's team builder, Anton Stralman. In NHL 22, he did get an 85 overall card for the Toronto Maple Leafs, so his stats will be a little bit higher than what the 84 version would be, more than likely. Now, I do want to touch on defensemen as a whole launch of the game, because a lot of the base defenseman cards, they usually lack skating, shooting, or defensive ability. Very rarely do defensemen at launch of the game have a nice balance of all 3, so cards like Anton Stralman could be very useful early on. If you think back to NHL 22, the 90 overall Adam Foote team builder was one of the best defenseman cards for essentially the first 2 to 3 months of the game. So defenseman early on could return some value if you're looking to actually use these 84 overall cards. Anton Stralman might be a good bet. Now, I will be honest, more than likely the 84 overall team builder cards, regardless of who you choose, will probably be replaced extremely early on in your team build. However, these cards, again, the value you're going to get if you use them to trade in for one of the higher overall team builder cards that will come out, they do return quite a bit of value. And just some early advice, again, we don't know exactly how the team builders will work, but we have to assume that they're going to be awfully similar to NHL 22. What I would do is if you are going to spend money on the game or you pre-order the game, which you would do if you were going to get these cards, you'll get 4,600 points regardless with the pre-order. I would rip all of your packs and find out which teams do you have the most cards for. Then what you can do is, you know that you've already got a little bit of a leg up because of the packs you opened. You can then take 2 team builders that are going to actually be towards one of the cards you're trying to build. So just something to think about there. Let me know, guys, what you think of the released team builders for NHL 23, and don't forget to subscribe for the most up-to-date news, tips, and info. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.